Hey everyone, it's Kai with SeriousWatches, and in this video I'm going to be sharing some of my best tips when it comes to buying a pre-owned watch. Now, if you've never heard of us before, we're SeriousWatches. We're based in the Netherlands and we're an authorized dealer of a number of brands, but we also sell pre-owned watches. And in that light, I've traded in hundreds, if not thousands of watches over the year, and I made some stupid mistakes. So I hope this video will help you avoid some of the major pitfalls when it comes to buying a pre-owned watch. So the first thing you need to look at is the condition of the watch and what your expectations are. When you buy a brand new watch, you know what you're going to get: tags, foils, box papers. Dealers can differ a little bit. Some can be an authorized dealer, some are gray markets. So you may have small differences, but the watch itself should always be the same, brand new. With pre-owned, every watch is different. So it can range all the way from brand new with tags and foils, because some people buy a watch, never wear it, trade it in again, all the way to a watch that is completely broken. And same thing sort of happens with the sellers. Some can be very honest. They can provide you with macro shots of scratches, all the way to people who sort of treat it like it's their LinkedIn or Tinder profile. They'll oversell it with euphemisms, and you can end up disappointed that your new watch doesn't quite like romantic walks on the beach. But in all seriousness, some sellers do oversell the watch a lot, or are particularly vague. They'll take pictures of every angle except one, or their product description doesn't really list if the watch was originally purchased from an authorized dealer. So what you need to do is first know what the important things are for you. Is it important that the watch comes with box and papers? Are you quite picky about bezel alignment? And once you have your own criteria, apply it to the listing. And if a seller, for whatever reason, doesn't list a certain specification, or if the pictures look like they've been taken with a Polaroid camera in the 1970s, ask for better pictures. In 2024, everyone has a good camera phone. There's no excuse for truly bad pictures. Not everyone's a photographer, but at least a seller should be able to convey the condition of the watch. And similarly for words, a seller should be able to aptly describe the condition of the watch. And if the description is vague, if the pictures are vague, ask for more pictures. If the seller is refusing to do that, for whatever reason, I would walk away. Generally, when a seller is vague or not proactive about certain things, they're trying to hide something, and you want to make sure that the watch you're getting is as you want it to be. Because you got to keep in mind, if you're buying from a private seller, there generally is no return policy. So if you get the watch and you're not happy, you're going to be pretty much stuck with it. And, which we'll address in the second point, it's just generally good to connect with the seller and make sure that you're on the same page. So the second thing, and this is where things get a little bit more serious, is how do you know if the seller is legit and if the product's legit? Now, the first thing, to start with the seller point, we do need to differentiate between, on one hand, professional sellers, and on the other hand, private sellers, because you need to approach them differently. With professional sellers, you can generally find reviews on Chrono24, you can find reviews on Trustpilot. You can establish if this is a legitimate company. And if you're dealing with an AD of Rolex that happens to sell pre-owned Rolexes on the site, you do not really need to question the authenticity as much as when you're dealing with a private seller. But you do need to make sure, if you're dealing even with a company, look up some of their reviews, go on Chrono24, go on Trustpilot, go on whatever feedback platform, just Google their names, see if they are legitimate, if they've been around for a while, do they have Google reviews. You got to make sure that the people you're dealing with, if you're not familiar with them, that they are legitimate and what sort of service level they offer. With private sellers, it's a lot more difficult, depending on the situation. Usually when you're buying watches pre-owned from fellow private sellers, this tends to be on social media, this tends to be on Facebook, this tends to be on Reddit or What You Seek or one of the big platforms. And you need to do some research into the seller. See if it even makes sense that he is selling a certain watch. If someone has been around for 10 years and primarily sells Seiko 5 models, and all of a sudden has a Patek Philippe 5712 for sale for a reasonably good price, you got to be suspicious. Google the person's name. Just see if you can find some way to establish that this is a legitimate person. And one trick I always use when I deal with private sellers and I'm a bit on the fence if everything's legit, I take the images that he puts in his listing and reverse image search them on Google. See if they show up anywhere else, because there are scammers out there, and mostly those scammers do not actually have the watch in hand. So if you reverse image search them, you can generally find them in other listings, and then you know if you can find it again, bad news, walk away. If you're selling a watch and you're not able or willing to take it out and take a picture, why? I mean, you're trying to sell something. The buyer is more valuable than the seller. It always is. So if someone's refusing to help you, just walk away. It's generally bad news. Now, authenticating the high-risk models, such as a Rolex Submariner, is incredibly difficult because they are frequently fake. The quality of the fakes can be extremely high, and it's just nearly impossible to authenticate it by eye without these specialized tools. So in such cases, it's very important that you have a good feeling about the whole transaction. You know, it's a cliche, but you buy the seller and not necessarily the product. And with such watches, it really plays a factor. Of course, you can look at things like serial numbers, but of course with the Rolex, you're unable to verify the authenticity based on the serial number. Some brands like Oris have a great system where you can check it. It helps a lot. But with Rolex especially, I would recommend, if you have any doubts, is perhaps going to a specialized watchmaker. Just going to an AD, in most cases, they may have a look for you and say, just send it in to their service center or something. But a specialized watchmaker may be able to do so. They may be able to open it up for you on the spot, make sure that they close it down again and test the water resistance and so on. They may be able to offer it. You may need to pay for it, but it may put your mind at ease. And what you can also do is, if the watch came with the original invoice, is giving the original authorized dealer where the watch was purchased a call just to verify that this is actually a legitimate invoice, because even the invoices are faked at some point. And in general, that's a question I get asked quite often. What is the value of box and paper? Well, in itself, the value is nothing because you're not going to use it. But the true value is that it adds pedigree to a watch, that it adds a verifiable part of the watch. But you do need to be careful that even boxes are fake, literally to the point where I've been to a pre-owned dealer once, and there was a watch without box and papers, and I thought, why doesn't it come with box and paper? Like, just give me 1 second. Went to the back, grabbed the box, and ta-da, the watch suddenly came with box. So you don't need to stare blindly if a watch comes with box and paper. You can't always assume that everything works out. I would say you need to be suspicious, assertive. You don't need to be paranoid, but you do need to be careful, because some people will say, oh, everything's okay. Don't automatically trust them on it. Just verify. And if one thing checks out, then you usually find that the second thing and the third thing, everything checks out. But once you hit a red flag, generally it tends to be a lot more red flags. Now the third thing, and this is something that can stab you in the back, and I know it stabbed me in the back several times, it's servicing. Now, the watch may still be under manufacturer warranty or retailer's warranty, but your servicing is going to be sooner than it is with a brand new watch. And this is something that the cost that nobody likes to spend. It's money that you need to get your product back in working condition. And of course, if it's an NH35 or an SW200 watch, most third-party watchmakers or just a good watchmaker will be able to take care of it, and the movements are not that expensive. So it's not an overly dangerous thing that is looming in the back. But once you're talking about mechanical chronographs or watches with exotic movements or complications and things, it can be quite a financial burden if you have terrible luck. I think the analogy with buying a high-performance vehicle like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or some sort of exotic car, and it hasn't had the regular maintenance, then generally, if you need to catch up on the maintenance, it's gonna be very, very costly. So that's something I do want to caution you for. Don't get stabbed in the back. Now, if you summarize all this, it may sound like it's a bad idea to buy a pre-owned watch. It's always going to be, you're going to get scammed, you're going to get stabbed, and all sorts of terrible things. Well, I would say these are just cautionary tips to keep in mind, because in all honesty, I love watches, and pre-owned brings me closer to enjoying my hobby much more than it is just walking to an AD. Well, the pre-owned thing, it can be a way to get watches you can't buy anymore. It can be a way to get a great deal. You can get so much more from it that I personally enjoy it a lot. But you do need to be more careful than if you walk into that AD, because you know, in that case, it's very straightforward. Every pre-owned watch is different, and you do need to be more careful. We're looking forward to doing more videos like these. So if you have any questions or things you want to know from behind the scenes of a professional watch seller, just leave a comment, and we're happy to discuss it in the future. But for now, thank you so much for watching.